This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.
What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast. We have persevered through every technical challenge. I got my good friend Jason Brown here today. We're here for hot topics. And guys, we are talking about giving you money that you are owed, or at least that's my hope. And I have Jason. He is a specialist in this, or he certainly is a specialist when it comes to marketing this. And brother, I just thank you for doing this. Number 3, as you said, this is lucky number 3. But this is such a cool thing that very few people know about it, and it's called ERC. And with that, I'll open it up and just kind of let you explain what the heck that means and why don't people know about it.
Jam, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. And man, congrats on your success in this podcast. It's awesome. I love listening to you. Pleasure to be here. And I'm glad it's not always my fault, these audio issues. But the ERC, one exciting thing. I think there's a couple reasons people haven't heard of it. Okay, when the government stimulus package known as the CARES Act first came out in March of 2020, the funnel to qualify for ERC was very small. Okay, so inside the CARES Act, there was the PPP program, the PPP loans, and there was ERC. And essentially, the government said, look, you can do one or the other. You can't do both. Well, guess what they decided to do for PPP is pay commissions. They decided to pay commissions to banks and loan facilitating companies and lending institutions. And so if you were a business owner, you were getting hit on your social media feed, your personal bank was reaching out to you. It was just this feeding frenzy for PPP. And if you did PPP, that instantly disqualified you from ERC. So I think that's the number one reason people didn't hear about it, because they already did PPP. Over 16 million businesses did PPP. And the other reason is kind of where it lies. It's an actual employee tax credit. It's a refund of essentially of wages paid. Okay, so your CPA, it's typically not in their lane because they don't deal a whole lot with payroll and 941 tax forms. And so then it kind of falls into maybe a payroll company that you use, and they typically don't deal with your taxes and applying for tax credits and refunds. And so I think between those two things, JM, it fell off the radar for sure.
Well, I want to get into the nuts and bolts. And again, reminder, guys, hot topics. I want you to understand that a lot of you are sitting there being owed money and you don't know it. And this is not a loan. That's the other thing I want to make sure I get out to people. And again, I'm not an expert. Jason knows way more about this than I do. But talk about that, brother, because it's not a loan. This is not something that they have to pay back. This is money that they've already paid for. The government has spent it. That was the other thing. And it's literally sitting there if they can just go access it.
Yeah. So unlike PPP, now PPP was a loan, but if you used it for payroll, if you showed that you used it for payroll, or at least claimed you did, it was forgiven, right? This is not a loan. It's not a grant. A grant is essentially free money, but you're told how you have to spend it. This is a tax credit, but the program's already over. It actually ended after Q3 of 2021. And so you can go back and amend your 2020 and 2021 941 form, your payroll taxes, and it's cut in the form of a check. And you can put it into your business, take distribution. It's essentially just money sitting on the table. And I love how you put it. So many businesses are out there that have money sitting on the table and they don't know about it. Forbes magazine just came out with an article that said up to 80% of all small to medium-sized businesses would qualify for some ERC funds.
So guys, I want you to hear this loud and clear. Whether you own the business or you're an employee and you want to look good to your boss, there is money sitting there more than likely that you don't know about. So Jay, talk to me about, give maybe some examples, because if I'm listening to this, I'm like, man, this just sounds maybe too good to be true. And even when I heard about this initially in Mexico, I was like, that doesn't make sense. But there's a lot, and you have a tremendous amount of stories now. That's how fast it is going. But talk to me about some, if I'm listening, it's not too good to be true, and some examples that you can maybe give.
Yeah, you bet. So look, that's everyone's first impression or reaction is what? Essentially, I hate the word free money because it's not essentially free money. You do have to go back and amend your payroll tax and do a few things, but essentially it's money that you're going to get paid for retaining employees, and that's the intent behind this thing. It's called the Employee Retention Credit. It was meant to help employers get through the pandemic and compensate them for retaining employees. So if somebody had said, "Hey, this PPP money," what was your first impression there? What? It's forgivable, essentially free money. Guys, it's part of the same exact legislation, the CARES Act. Google it. Take a look. When you Google it, once you get past a few of the paid ads, the first link is the IRS website, right? Go in, whether you're Googling the CARES Act or ERC, it's there. Gosh, we have story after story after story. I mean, we've just, we're the fulfillment company we're using to file these just crossed over the $1 billion mark in credits applied and approved. That those we're just waiting on the checks, and now checks are coming in. Business owners are getting those funds. The first call I made when I heard about it was to my sister, who's a small business owner. She just has a handful of employees in a retail shop. She got $69,000, right? Which is a game changer for a business her size. And then we have businesses all the way up to a few hundred employees that are getting millions of dollars, right? A gentleman here in our office building owns a transportation company, a trucking company. They have 180 or 181 employees. They're getting $3.1 million. Wow. And again, we can sit there and go, gosh, that money, that's a tremendous amount. But they retained employees during one of the hardest times in our country's history. And so it's good to see that, them being compensated for that.
Yeah, maybe one of the other things that initially hit me, I remember, again, saying, gosh, I don't want the government spending more money. And that was one of my visceral reactions. I'm like, come on, man, we don't need to be spending more money, but the money has been spent. Am I accurate in saying that?
No, you're right. So the CARES Act, $2.2 trillion was allocated, voted in, passed into law March 27th of 2020, right? So right at the beginning. And that was to help business owners get through what was coming. And so that money has already been allocated. I love the way you said it. They're not sending it back. Because I'm like you, I'm like, gosh, look, most entrepreneurs they're able to pivot. And that's what we do as business owners is we scramble, we find ways to survive. And so a lot of people were actually able to thrive and maybe even grow their business. But essentially that brings us to how do you qualify? Like what would qualify a business? Okay. There's three ways. Number one, you can qualify in revenue. And there's some parameters to that. In 2020, a 50% revenue reduction. In 2021, a 20% revenue reduction. So if you hit those revenue reductions, no questions asked, you qualify. You don't even need to go any further. The second qualification is a full or partial shutdown via government order or mandate. So if you personally, your business was deemed non-essential and you had to close, right? Then you qualify. It doesn't matter if you were able to pivot and do some things and keep your revenue up. You qualify if you were directly affected by a shutdown. What does partial shutdown mean? Well, let's say you're a restaurant owner, JM, and you had to maybe close in-room dining, but you could do drive-through or you could do takeout. Or, here in Utah, we were fortunate. Most businesses weren't completely shut down, but they had to take out half their tables. They had to comply with social distancing guidelines, so they couldn't have as many people in there. Those are partial shutdowns. But Jam, the most recent legislation, which really blows the doors off this thing, and it widens the funnel to, like Forbes magazine says, about 80% of businesses, is essentially it says, was the way you conduct business affected by government mandate? That includes supply chain issues. Okay. Are you a construction company, a home builder? And even though you thrived, you made money, you didn't qualify in revenue, you weren't shut down personally, but you couldn't get lumber, you couldn't get concrete, you couldn't get stucco, you had to push jobs off. Okay. You qualify. So that supply chain issues, did you travel? Was travel restricted for you and you not able to have live meetings? And that's how you normally do your business. Now, look, you might have been able to pivot to Zoom meetings, but trade shows were canceled because they couldn't have meetings over 6 people in some areas and things like that. So those all would qualify a business.
So essentially everyone, I mean, no one didn't get affected. And I'm not saying 100% of people will get approved, but talk to me about, because it's a pretty easy approval process, especially if I did PPP and you said, JM, you got to go do it again. I might tell you, no, thanks.
Not worth it.
But this one's not like that, man. This is pretty simple. It's not a whole lot of effort to go get money that's owed to you. That's a pretty fair assessment, right?
Yeah. I think essentially what business owners are going to ask is, okay, how do I know if I qualify? What's the process? And then obviously how much, right? Like how much can I be looking at here? I'll start with that first, right? That's what people want to know is roughly how much. So it's essentially up to $26,000 per employee. Now that's the max. Okay. So even though they did say now you can do ERC, and I don't know, I mentioned that earlier, the legislation has changed to the point now where the government said, hey, we got to get this money out the door. Even if you did PPP, you can now do ERC. So in case there was some confusion in the beginning where I said you couldn't do both, you now can. Up to $26,000 per employee. But some quarters you may not qualify. You do have to take out the ERC or the PPP credits. You can't apply it during the same quarter that you took PPP funds. So our average JM is about $17,000 per employee. So if you're a business owner out there listening to this, guys, and you're thinking in your head, gosh, I've got 10 employees, you may be getting maybe $170,000 to $200,000 cut in the form of a check made out to your business. Okay. Now back to your question. What do I have to do to qualify? There's not a lot of moving parts to this. You're not trying to qualify for a loan here. With ERC, Jam, I think you're going to put the link in the description below. Click on that link, and there's a begin qualifying button. And it's just going to ask you some questions about your business. Nothing too intrusive. It doesn't ask for EIN numbers or anything like that. Certainly no form of payment. But it just goes through those 3 qualifiers. It asks about revenue. It asks about personal shutdown, full or partial shutdown. And then the third thing it's going to ask about is those processes like supply chain issues, travel. And then if you answer no, I wasn't affected, then it's going to tell you don't qualify. Okay. But if you answer on that, especially that third one that's more subjective, if you say, yes, I did have supply chain issues and here's how there's a description section. Just tell us how you were affected. And we'll give you a preliminary, hey, yes, it looks like you might qualify or looks like you might not. If it says yes, you'll get another email with a few documents you got to upload. And it's not like PPP where you had to just, turn your entire books upside down. It's a simple payroll report. We give you the parameters and instructions on exactly how to download it. You can even hook your system up to ours and we can pull the report if that's easiest for you. And then a 941 form. And this email is a drag and drop. So you just click on it, drag it into the email, drop it. It's a secure upload portal. And it takes us about a week, JM, to scrub those docs. We go line item by line item through your entire payroll report, and we'll try and get every dollar we can. We'll send you an email that says, great news. You qualified for X. All you have to do is give a DocuSign, an e-signature, and it gets submitted to the IRS. So it's a pretty painless process.
Well, I hope if you're listening, just go do it. We are going to link it in the show notes. The link will be there. If not, hear this loud and clear. Reach out to info@letsgowin.com. I will get you to the right human beings. And look, if you want to throw a party with me and celebrate with some of that money, I will gladly go enjoy some of that. But seriously, this is money owed to you. I don't get anything for this other than I want to share it with human beings I care about. This is something that you should take advantage of as a thank you for keeping your business going through the pandemic. And Jay, my thank you to you for doing this now 2 and actually 3 times, but twice live, because it's important. I want people to know about it.
JM, thanks for having me. Tell Lisa and the boys hello. And man, I'll do this again anytime. Look, I know you're like me, and I don't mean to keep rambling on, but I know you're like me. We believe that small to medium-sized businesses are the heartbeat of our country and our economy. And we're super passionate about helping these folks recover this money. So thanks for having me on, man. We appreciate it.
Nah, brother, I appreciate you. And guys, take advantage of it. Like I said, the link is there. Reach out to info@letsgowin.com. Call my cell phone. Find me, and I will make sure we get you to the right people. Jason and his entire team is incredible. So until next time, if you don't go get that money, remember your mindset matters. We'll talk to you then. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.